What's up, guys? My name is Brandon and welcome back to Apple Weekly. In this episode, we're going to discuss even more new features in iOS 18.1 and 18.2 Beta 1. We're going to discuss why next week's M4 Mac rollout is strange, why Apple might be ending Vision Pro production by the end of the year, a crazy AirTag story, and more. And as always, if you want to stay updated with everything going on in the world of Apple, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Okay, so this week was wild because not only did we get confirmation of the M4 Max coming next week, but we also saw Apple release iOS 18.2 Beta 1 before the final official release of iOS 18.1, which is coming on Monday. And I thought 18.1 was a big update, but iOS 18.2 is already going to be a bigger update than iOS 18.1. And we have even more new features and changes to discuss in 18.2. So if you missed my What's New video, check that out first because I cover a lot of new features and Apple Intelligence changes in that video. It's linked up in the cards and down in the description below. I also did a quick news interview about these new features. So I thought that was pretty cool. My first time being on a nationally broadcast news station to talk about Apple. Version of them of whatever you want.
YouTuber Brandon Butch shows on his channel you can tap on suggestions from a menu.
We want to make this, let's just say Halloween, so we'll add that into the mix. And let's add in a chef hat as a costume, and maybe one more thing. Maybe we'll add some sunglasses. Anyways, let's get to these additional features here in iOS 18.2 Beta 1. So if we go into the Mail application, we have the brand new interface here, like I showed in my What's New video. So the default tab is going to be primary, and when you tap on the shopping cart, that will show your transactions. And then next to that, we have updates. And then over here, we have promotions. So similar to what we see with Gmail, you now have auto categorization of your mail messages. Now, something that a lot of people didn't realize is that you could actually tap when you're in any of these sections, just tap on primary, for example, and then it will take you to all of your mail. So if you don't have something that's maybe categorized correctly, or you just want to see all your mail in one, list, you can do that. And then you can just tap again on any of these to go back to that category. But there's a lot more to this because if we go over to our promotions right here and then go into, let's just say Universal Orlando Resort, for example, take a look at this new UI. So for the promotions, it will now show the business up top. It will show how many were promotions. So it says 26 promotions, 29 messages, and you can tap on that and you can show all messages or just show the promotions. And you can kind of just swipe up and see all of your messages, all your emails from that specific sender. And then if you tap on the three dots up in the top right, you have an option to mark as unread, archive all, and then we also have a categorization button right here. When you tap on that, this will allow you to automatically categorize this sender. So if it maybe gets it wrong or you want to recategorize a specific sender, this is where you can do that under manually categorize. So let's say, for example, I want Universal Orlando Resort to always show up in my primary instead of promotions. I can just go here and it says recategorize all messages from Universal to primary, tap on continue, and now they will show up in my primary inbox. And you'll notice that these emails are now bunched together. So for example, if I swipe over to archive this acquire.com notification here, you can see that it shows archive 3 messages. So they're all bundled together. Now you can turn that off. So if you go up to the 3 dots up in the top right, you can see group by sender. This is enabled by default, but if you want to disable that, you can go ahead and do that. But I find this to be very useful when you can group by sender and archive every message that was sent from that specific person. Oh, and something else I wanted to mention is that if you're in the primary inbox and you have a message that is also in another category, like this Robinhood email that is also in the transactions, as you can see from the green glyph icon right there, if you swipe over on that, we now have a new option to clear. So you can clear this message from the primary inbox. That way it only exists in the transaction or whatever the other category is that it's categorized as. So we can go ahead and clear it. So yeah, I'm loving the new mail application in iOS 18.2. I knew I would, and this has just really exceeded my expectations with how well it works. It really does a great job of categorizing. And I also like going to the 3 dots right here and going to about categories, and it will show you statistics on how many, were actually sent for each category. So for transactions, for example, it shows that 29 messages from 20 senders have sent me transaction emails. Anyways, moving on from from the mail application, let's go into the podcast application because we have a pretty big change here as well that I didn't really see too many people talking about, and I also did not cover this in my initial What's New video. So if you go into your library here, we have a brand new section called Categories. And if you go into here, you have different categories. So we have entrepreneurship, technology, arts, business, investing, and so on. You can even see a play button next to these, and it will start playing podcasts that match that category. So if I go ahead and do that on self-improvement, it will start playing my self-improvement podcasts, and it will show how many followed shows you have that fall under these categories. Now you'll notice up top, I have these two favorites because yes, you can favorite them. So if I go into business, for example, you can see that I can go ahead and favorite business. Right up here in the top right, we have a little favorite button. You can tap on that. Now what's great is that when you go into one of these categories, it does not only show your specific shows, it will also show the top shows, more in business, essentials, and it just gives you basically a great way to browse and explore other podcasts that are in that specific category. I feel like podcasting has always been really hard to find good podcasts. It's really hard to like search and find a good podcast, but this is going to make it a lot easier. So I'm a big fan of this new feature. And if you go back and go to manage up in the top right, this is where you can manage your categories. So you have your favorites right here, which I selected those favorites. Then you have your suggested. You also have popular. So if you want to see, let's just say politics, for example, since that's hot right now, we can add that to our favorites. And you can see I have no followed shows that fall under politics. So when I go into there, it will show me some of the shows that it thinks I might like that are in that category for politics. We finally have the layering feature inside of the voice memos application. So if you have a voice memo right here, you can see we have a new plus icon on the play area right here. So if you tap on plus, this allows you to record another section over this layer. So if you maybe had an instrumental that was playing and you only wanted to record vocals, you can do that here straight within the voice memos application, which is really nice. And you can tap to go into each of these layers. And if you tap on these settings up in the top left, you can change the layer mix. So if you only want to hear, a little bit of layer 1, but a lot of layer 2, you can kind of skew it in that direction. The adaptive noise control glyph icon has a new look in iOS 18.2 for your AirPods. So you can see it has kind of a blue and dark blue tone to it, whereas before it was multicolored. It was like a rainbow look. That's what it looks like. And when you go into the menu, that's what it looks like there. But there's another feature related to music that I think you're going to love a lot more than that one. And that is inside of our accessibility settings. So if you go into accessibility and then go down to audio and visual, right here we have a brand new toggle for always show volume control. And what this does is it will add the volume control to your lock screen platter. So this was gone for years, but now it has come back. So if you want to always show the volume control, you can do that. And now you'll see that sometimes it does take a minute to refresh, but there we go. You can see that the volume is showing now, and it will stay there no matter what, as long as you have this setting turned on to always show volume control. The stocks application now shows pre-market prices. So before it didn't update before the market officially opened, but now you can see that in the default stocks app. If we head into our settings for Safari and then scroll down, we have a brand new section here for importing and exporting our history and website data. And then heading into the App Store, if you go to the arcade section and then go to all games right here, we have a new menu up in the top right-hand corner where we can hide game previews. So if you don't want to see the previews up top, you can go ahead and turn that off. And now we just have a simple list of all of our games. If you have an Apple News Plus subscription, you will now receive daily Sudoku puzzles. Now, I briefly mentioned this in my What's New video, but I wanted to elaborate a little bit more on installing third-party app stores and applications on your device if you're not in the EU. So I'm in the US, and you can see that underneath of the App Store, we have a new section for app installation. And down here at the bottom, you can see that I have two different app stores that are allowed for web installation. So we have Alt Store and Epic Games. Now, what's interesting is that when I try to download Alt Store and Fortnite from Epic Games, it just does not install. However, it looks like this could potentially be coming at some point in the future. Although Apple, it seemed like from their wording that it's not coming, it's just here for developers to see how it is in the EU, but we'll have to wait and see. If we tint our icons and go into our settings, you can see that we have tinted icons down here at the bottom. So App Store, Game Center, iCloud, and Wallet all show the tinted version of the icon, which is pretty interesting. You can see that Apple Intelligence has also been changed to a tinted look. Now, this might might be a bug because it doesn't show up for all of our icons right here, but I found that to be pretty interesting. And this does also happen with the share sheet as well. So if you go into our share sheet, you can see that the icons have the tint to them. Now, of course, with iOS 18.2, we do also have the ChatGPT integration for Apple Intelligence. So you can see this underneath of the Apple Intelligence settings. It is off by default, but I think that everybody should go ahead and enable this if you are interested in this. You don't need a ChatGPT account. And of course, all your data is safe. You know, Apple obscures your IP address. So like none of your data is going to OpenAI like some people might think it is. So it's secure. You don't even have to have an account. It's awesome. And if you go into notes, for example, I really love the new compose feature. So if you select some text right here and go into your writing tools and go down to compose, you can see that this uses ChatGPT to basically create something up from scratch or to rewrite something. And something I did not mention is that you could tap on this plus right here and you can also reference a file or an image. So I'm going to select these 3 screenshots of the changelog for iOS 18.1 and go ahead to add, and then I'm going to ask ChatGPT to describe the changes. So I'm referencing these 3 images right here, and I can say describe the changes in bullet points, but explain like I'm 5, also throw some humor in, and don't make it more than 10 bullets. So if I go ahead and do that, ChatGPT will spit out the answer right here within Notes. I don't have to go into the ChatGPT application. I don't need an account. This all happens on device, and you can see it will happen right here in Notes. So here's what it gave me. So I did ask it to make it humorous and, explain like I'm 5. So you can see, it will say things like AKA mom's calls, Control Center magic tricks, RCS Messenger spies are watching, App Store's Sherlock Holmes mode. You can see it can just come up with really creative ideas, and you can see the emojis that accompany these different bullet points as well. That is awesome. And what's even better is that you can, refine this as well. So if it's not exactly what you want, or if you wanted to change something, you get suggestions down here to add more humor, make it more concise, explain technically, or you can have, refine it with a specific phrase that maybe you want to enter in yourself. But my personal favorite part is the fact that we can now basically bypass Siri and only ask ChatGPT queries. All you have to do is just say, ask ChatGPT, and then say whatever you want. And you can even do things like create images straight from the Siri interface. So watch this. Ask ChatGPT to create an image of me sitting in my office in a spacesuit with a cat on my head. And you can see it will say working. So it is working with ChatGPT here, and it's going to give us a generative image based on what I just said with my voice. So there you go. There I am sitting at my desk with a cat on my head while wearing a spacesuit. That is awesome. And I can download it right here as well. If I just tap in the top right, it will go ahead and download that image straight to my camera roll. And here's something else that it can do. So if I go down here and ask ChatGPT to describe the image on my screen, it can do that. So ask ChatGPT to explain the image on my screen right now. And then it will ask if you want to send that screenshot. We can go ahead and tap on send, and then it will describe what it sees. And yep, it got it right. And then of course we have the Image Playground feature, which by the way, just a fun fact, I did not expect so many people to not have access to the Image Playground and Genmoji. You did have to sign up for a new waitlist with iOS 18.2, but a lot of users are still not able to gain access. However, we did hear news from Apple themselves that this will be rolling out to more people over the coming weeks, and that they're aware of this issue, and it is a waitlist after all. Anyways, if you go into Image Playground, you can see some of the images I've created right here of myself and others, and of course some of the images I just completely made up myself, like the Lamborghini and the cat sitting on the moon. So this feature is absolutely amazing. I already covered this pretty in depth in my What's New video, so I won't go too much more in depth here, but if you go ahead and select your person, which you can do multiple people as well, you can kind of swipe over and add these different themes, costumes, accessories, and places, and it will kind of combine all of them right there and create an image for you that you can, see multiple variations of right there. And also if you tap on the plus, you can change this to an illustration version instead of the animation version if you want more of like a comic book vibe. And of course you can describe an image as well. If you want to describe something and create it, you can do that right here within the Image Playground application. It is absolutely awesome, and I've been very impressed with how accurate it is. Pretty much everybody that I've run through the application, which I've done probably 20 different people in my camera roll, every single one of them have been pretty spot on. And when when I send them the image, they really get a kick out of it. So I've spent hours in this application. I absolutely love it. And I think a lot of people are going to love this as well. And then of course, we do also have Genmoji right here. If you go into the emoji bar and go ahead to describe an emoji, this is where you can describe what emoji you want to create on the fly. So this is completely random, but it's the first thing that came to my mind. Ketchup bottle wearing a beanie with arms. So I'm really curious to see how it's going to create this. So this is our Genmoji. Oh my goodness. These are hilarious. I mean, every one of these just make me crack up. So that is apparently a new, character I guess I'm going to have here on the channel. So I'm going to save that as a sticker. That's a ketchup bottle wearing a beanie with arms. And I guess that white is supposed to be, I don't know, maybe that's like facial hair for this character. I don't know, but that's pretty funny. And of course, we have several other features and changes in iOS 18.2 and even more Apple Intelligence features that I did not discuss. Otherwise, I'd be sitting here all day. This would be another hour-long video. So I'll save you that. I already talked about a lot of them in my What's New video. Now, as far as iOS 18.1 goes, we are going to see the writing tools feature. However, we're just going to be missing the describe your change and the compose section. Otherwise, we have the same little area down here on iOS 18.1. And again, that's going out to the public next week on Monday. So stay tuned for that video. I will have a video coming on that, along with how to get started and how to get set up with Apple Intelligence for the first time on your device. Now, as far as the performance goes on iOS 18.1, performance and battery life are both great, but they're pretty much exactly the same as what we talked about in my RC video. So we're going to focus on iOS 18.2 beta 1 because that's what I'm currently running on my main device here. And I can tell you right now that the performance or the battery life are not great. So performance is not bad. It's not terrible, but battery life is the worst. But anyways, if we go to our Geekbench right here, you'll notice I do have a Geekbench test here where we scored a 3392 on the single core and an 8056 on the multi-core. Now, as far as performance goes, again, it's not that much different from iOS 18.1. However, I can tell you that I've already had multiple restarts on 18.2 beta 1. And every single time it's been from being inside of the Image Playground application or when creating a Genmoji. Now, I also noticed that my device gets really hot. Multiple devices that I've used get really hot when I'm doing, the Image Playground or the Genmoji. So for those reasons, we also have a nice hit to the battery life as well. So battery life has not been the greatest here with 18.2 beta 1. So if you go and check out our battery chart right here, you can see what we've done over the past 24 hours. Anytime you see red, that's not a great sign. That's not typical for me lately. And you can see the Image Playground is my number 3 over the last 24 hours. And if we go to our last 10 days, you'll see that it's not as far up there. If we go down, okay, so it's way down here under threads. It seems like it's taking up more battery life, but you can kind of see what that looks like right there. So yeah, battery life or performance, don't expect it to be as good as iOS 18.1. Now, as far as what to expect next from Apple, next week, once again, we are going to see iOS 18.1 get released to the public on Monday, the 28th. And then as far as iOS 18.2 public beta and also iOS 18.2 developer beta 2, we are not likely going to see that next week. We could see the public beta as early as next week, but I would not expect developer beta 2 until the week of November 4th. But again, who knows? Apple is extremely unpredictable around this time, especially with Apple Intelligence coming out right now. It's really hard to say what they're going to do, but the only thing we know for a fact is that iOS 18.2 is going to be released to the public at some point in December. So it is coming before 2025. And of course, that does give us a kind of good time frame for beta testing here as well. We'll have the entire month of November and probably the first couple of weeks of December for beta testing. All right, so now let's move on to the latest Apple news. And let's start with the big news that Apple announced this week, and that is that we're officially getting the M4 Max next week, starting next week. And that's because for the first time since 2019, it looks like Apple is planning a staggered release rollout for their upcoming M4 Max. So Jaws posted this on X where he said, "Mac your calendars. We have an exciting week of announcements ahead starting on Monday morning. Stay tuned." And keep in mind, he said starting on Monday morning. And that's why we think this is going to be a staggered rollout. So I'm guessing that we're going to see at least one new product released on Monday and then on Tuesday and then also on Wednesday, potentially even on Thursday. However, Thursday is Apple's earnings report. So all this is leading up to their earnings earnings reports, and I really feel like we're going to get the release of these Macs the next day on a Friday. So basically every single day this week is going to be something big in the news for Apple, whether that's a product launch, the earnings, a product announcement, the earnings, and then the product launch. So every day next week is going to have some type of news related to the Mac, and I'm very excited for that. Okay, so now let's talk about why Apple is going to allegedly end production for the Vision Pro by the end of this year. So this news broke from The Information, and they were able to cite multiple people directly involved in making components for the Vision Pro headset. And they said that Vision Pro suppliers have now produced enough components for between 500,000 and 600,000 headsets. So basically, Apple has enough Vision Pro units to meet demand for the remaining lifespan of the first generation device. So a lot of people saw this headline and they were like, oh, I knew it was a flop. Apple's not even going to sell any more of these. That's not the case. Apple has just produced so many of them that now they're just, sitting on a pile of them, and they're not going to be producing anymore because they've obviously understood that the demand is very low as it was intended to be. And, they're just going to, use these units until the next one gets announced. And I think that leaves us with a good clue as to the fact that we're going to see a new Vision headset, maybe not a Vision Pro, but a Vision headset at some point in 2025. And then finally, as tradition, we have another crazy AirTag story. And this time we have a story out of Guam for the first time ever here on the channel. So 2 women decided to steal cameras and other equipment from a photo booth business out in Guam. And it looks like even people there are taking full advantage of AirTags because the business owner hid an AirTag inside of the camera case that was stolen. And sure enough, he was able to track it down to a residence, and that's when he called police. Now, once the police arrived, 2 males fled from the residence, one of them being the homeowner, and a family member turned over the stolen camera case to the police officers after hearing the AirTag making a noise from inside of the case, which ended up being an empty box. Everything was still stolen. But it's not all bad news because the next day, police were able to get a warrant to search the house, and they didn't find any of the stolen goods, unfortunately, but they did find a lot more. So they found 1.2 pounds of meth, a handbag with 2 ounces of meth in it, 2 rifles, a pistol that was reported stolen last year, 2 stolen Harley-Davidson motorcycles, stolen clothes, and a Rolex watch worth $14,000, which the suspect later said was obtained by a trade for meth. Go figure. Anyways, once the police eventually located the suspect, she had an additional 9 grams of meth on her, along with several pills. So of course she was arrested and charged for her crimes. However, the stolen property was still never returned. So I'm guessing they just pawned it off somewhere. So that's unfortunate, but at least the thieves didn't fully get away with it. They still got caught for doing other things illegal, and the police did find those other stolen objects. So that's it for this week. Stay tuned. Next week's going to be crazy. And of course, the rest of this year really is going to be pretty crazy when it comes to Apple news and Apple products. So hope you guys stick around, and I'll see you soon.